In this episode, we answer, I want results now, what can I do? What should I be eating for my metabolic reset meal?
What are my macros and should I be tracking them?
And what does tempo actually mean?
You ask questions and we'll answer them. This is the Ask Dvcc show.
Hey, this is Mark and Steve from the Dvcc, and this is the Ask Dvcc show. And today we're going to be answering your questions on weight loss and muscle tone increase. So, we've got some questions, a few tweeted to us. So we're going to answer them now. We've got 4 questions here. First one is,
I want results now and don't want to wait. What can I do?
Well, this is true of anything, I think, isn't it? Everyone wants something now. Now, the interesting thing with weight loss and fat loss is that kind of attitude can actually backfire and can actually cause you in the long run to not be as successful. So basically what happens with your body is it has its own metabolic set rate. So Your set point is basically where your body, in very simple terms, thinks it should be. Where it's used to being, the amount of body fat it's used to carrying, the amount of muscle tone it's used to having, and it's where your body feels comfortable. So what happens is, if you change from that set point very, very fast, or in a very swift, quick manner, your body still thinks it should be how it was. So if you lose a large amount of weight,
Biggest Loser,
aka on The Biggest Loser, where they lose enormous amounts of weight very, very fast, your body's set point hasn't had a time to change. So what will happen is your body will do its best to get back to where it's comfortable and its set point.
I saw a very interesting article, you might have seen it on circulating on Facebook, about The Biggest Loser. I think it's Biggest Loser America, to be fair. And they did a check on how many of those Biggest Loser participants had actually rebounded and gone back even to a bigger weight than they actually were, and it was a very, very high proportion.
And that is really caused by that set point, but also by your body not being able to have time to look at the psychological components and build the habits that are needed for continued long-term fat loss. So actually, the answer to it is, if you try and lose too much too quickly, you're going to end more likely in failure. So you're better off thinking and focusing on the process, enjoying the process.
Develop the habits.
Think about it as a long-term thing. At the end of the day, when you're trying to lose fat, you don't really want to lose it for a short period of time and then put it back on. You want it for the rest of your life.
True, and most of our clients are, the average age of our clients are 44, 46. And, let's be fair, most of us, even at the age of 30 to 40, have tried lots of different types of dieting and different things to lose weight and done the whole fast and losing weight and then putting it back on. Like we say, we always want to try and develop healthy habits and enjoyable habits. That's why habits are very important, because you're not on a diet, you're not starving yourself for a short period of time, you're doing something that becomes as part of your life, your natural daily life.
And that's where it comes back to when you were talking about the wagon video, where a lot of people related to, is because when you're thinking longer term, it doesn't matter if you've messed up for a weekend, or I say messed up, you feel like you've messed up, or you ate a meal that you didn't want to eat. It doesn't matter as much, because you're thinking long term and you realise that in the end you'll win, rather than thinking, in the short term, I just want to lose as much as possible.
Yeah. Good. So the next question is,
what should my metabolic reset meal contain?
This is obviously from a Dvcc client, because they have called it a metabolic reset meal, which is the first win.
And this is probably the favourite topic of discussion.
Well, number one, they've done very well by calling it a metabolic reset meal, because cheat meal is what a lot of people call these types of meals, and that has a bad...
Well, it's a very negative
way
of
you're cheating, what does cheating is a negative connotation. A metabolic reset meal is for a reason, so you have no reason to feel guilty.
And so a metabolic reset meal is basically where you're having a meal that you would look forward to, you would consider, it's not related to fat loss or muscle tone, it's not a healthy meal, it's one that you perhaps have craved for a few weeks, or you're really looking forward to. You're going out for I don't know, an Indian restaurant with friends or what have you?
Now, we'll admit our views on this have changed gradually over the years, and we've formulated our opinion slightly. It's changed over the last year, even 12 months. And it used to be, eat whatever you want, sit down, as long as you're just sitting down for that one meal, eat what you want. But now we've become more interested / knowledgeable on health, as well as just getting transformations. We are now suggesting to our clients that they want to have protein, they want to have fat or carbs. They want fat and carbs to be inversely proportional. That means the more fat you have, the less carbs you would have, and vice versa. The more carbs you'd have in a meal, the less fat you would have.
Most people would generally crave carbohydrate types foods. So what can happen though, if you're not careful about the amount of fat content in those foods, is you will literally be able to, and we discovered this, and I think this has changed because food quality has probably changed, where there is now more fat as well as carbohydrate. And that combination of high amounts of fat, trans fats often, and high amounts of carbohydrate or sugar really is a poor combination, because it doesn't fill you up. It will lead to major cravings, and also you've just managed to drastically take an enormous amount of calories without really realizing. So previously, foods weren't quite made the same way they seem to be now.
They kind of, manufacturing is obviously being manipulated by the media, and they're trying to find different ways, but the amounts I was looking at, I think it was a cheesecake or whatever it was, like a normal, just, you can get them in M&S, just a single person cheesecake, and the amount of fat, but not good fat, because obviously fat is good, some saturated, terrible fat with also lots of sugar. Now that's a prime, if you want to put on body fat, have a croissant with a full fat latte with cream and everything else like that. You've got saturated fats, really bad hydrogenated fats, and also carbohydrate, sugary carbohydrates. So reset meals are there for a reason. You want to replenish your glycogen, all those types of things, but it doesn't mean you need to just smash your body full of terrible things for it, because at the end of the day, it will have a negative effect, whether that's health or physique, body fat wise. Protein, number one. Carbohydrates or fats, inversely proportional. High carbs, low fat, high fat, low carbs. Okay? Simple. If you stick to that for your metabolic reset meals, then you will not go far wrong.
Yep.
So, next question.
I've read in magazines that you should focus on something called tempo. What is it?
So, a tempo is basically a way of performing any exercise. You'll find if you are personal trained by a knowledgeable personal trainer, certainly anyone at the Dvccs, they'll tell you to lift an exercise at a certain speed. So you'll push up at a certain speed, you might pause at the top, and then you'll go down at a certain speed, pause at the bottom. And that's tempo. Basically, you want to manipulate your body to formulate different hormones and different things, and you need to put your muscles under a certain tension for a certain period of time, for a certain different type of exercise, to elicit that response.
So basically what Mark's trying to say in a simple format is that your body responds and either builds muscle, loses fat, what have you, not by the number of reps you did or the weight you did, but the amount of time you spent...
TUT.
Time under tension. The amount of time you spent putting your body under tension. So tempo allows you to actually know roughly how much time you're actually pushing your muscle under tension.
So that's why it's important. If you ever, you're doing exercise and you see a number, it says tempo and it says numbers. First number, so imagine it says 4010. That's often a tempo that you will see. The first letter, or the first number, is always what's called the eccentric, the way down on the motion. You're squatting on the way down. You would take 4 seconds to go all the way down. The second number is always at the bottom of the motion, and it's either a hold or not a hold. If it was 40, there'd be no hold. So you'd just immediately go all the way down and you'd immediately start going up. That third number is on the way up. That number means the amount of time it will take you to go up. So it'll take you 1 second to go up. And then the last number is at the top of the motion, whether you'd pause or not. So 4 seconds, 4010, 4 seconds down for a squat, no hold at the bottom, 1 second to go all the way up, and then no hold at the top. And you'd immediately go to the second repetition. So hopefully you understand that. That's what tempo is and why it is important for you to do.
Everyone wants to talk about macros. What are they, and should I focus on them?
They are quite a bit of a
really popular.
really popular currently.
But they're not new, which is the interesting
They've been around
thing.
for absolutely years.
It's like
years.
one of these things. They come in cycles, fads maybe.
Probably
you call
some
them.
diets.
Yeah,
being
maybe
released of them.
it was in a magazine somewhere.
So macros, as with my last answer to for tempo, are to do with macronutrients. It's basically a way of describing carbohydrates, protein, and fats. They are macronutrients. Macro means big, macronutrients. Basically, if you're a fitness competitor or somebody that's trying to get to very low levels of body fat, they would focus on their macronutrients. They might have more protein than carbs or more carbs than fats, and they'd have them at different ratios for different things. Now, it's all individual. So a lot of people say 40-40-20. I need 40% carbs, 40% fats and 20% protein, or vice versa, or whatever. But it's very, very individual, so you can't really say one size fits all.
And we've got an interesting perspective on this, because for the clients that come to the Dvcc, we do not, on the whole, for most of them, recommend that they count their macros, or they become, the people that are putting every single thing into their phone to count their macros. Now, that is a blanket statement, because what you find is if you haven't built the correct habits and things, if you go straight into tracking your macronutrients every day, it can really...
Tracking them in terms of trying to hit a certain target. If you're just doing it to see where you're at, that's fine, and we encourage that often. But what Stephen's talking about is not just tracking them for the sake of tracking them. He's talking about where people are trying to hit a certain number of carbohydrates, proteins, fats. We don't encourage that in general for our clients, because we're trying to formulate habits that enable them to be able to not have to be so anal and always entering into their phones. Because it's fine if you're a 25-year-old fitness competitor whose only thing is that, but when you're having to track what your child's doing at the same time, it becomes overwhelming.
And it can become very mentally draining as well. So you may miss for whatever reason, and it can be that forget today, and you'll just go and forget about today, and you'll end up eating far worse than you would have done. And so it's not to say that on one of our muscle tone program, we do actually encourage knowing what you're actually having. And sometimes if someone's progress is stalled or what have you, we'll ask them to actually note down and write down what they are eating. But the blanket prescription that there seems to be of what are your macros is not something we encourage at the Dvcc, because it doesn't produce better results in the long run. It produces a lot more angst in the short term for most people. So, there are rare changes. There is the odd person that just loves to see a number, but on the whole, it's not something we recommend as a blanket prescription. Like there seems to be going around everywhere.
Seems to be a bit of a fad, which we don't believe leads to long-term, sustainable, enjoyable, healthy living. So, anyway, that's the 4 questions answered for you today. If you have any more questions, as always, leave them in the comments below. Question of the day is, do you count your macros? If so, how long for? And what is your macro split?
And why?
And why? There we go. Do you know why? Yeah. Thanks and goodbye.